Good day, all. If you remember, last when we met in the safety class, we were talking of contingency planning for transit in HRA, and we had started looking at the BMP version 5.0 for this purpose. So let us continue on that. Just recall, no confusion. This particular session is on ship safety, and then, of course, in the afternoon, I got a class which we will devote to cargo work.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So we were looking at the issue regarding contingency plan transit in HRA, and we have started our discussion by looking at what is called the BMP version 5.0. So to continue with that, we had covered some points and now we'll go ahead. We are looking at contingency planning, so enhanced bridge protection is also one of the points. This is actually the focal point, the bridge, because the attackers or the pirates, they know if they can control the bridge, they can control the vessel. So this becomes the focal point for the attackers. They usually make for the bridge after boarding. If they are successful in boarding, they will try and get control of the bridge. That is a focal point for the pirates, because they know if they can control the bridge, or if they can you know overpower the people on bridge, they can take control of the vessel itself. So there is a point, if possible, it should be possible also by taking enhanced bridge protection. Bridge windows laminated and fabricated metal plates to be for the side and rear bridge windows reinforced so that it can be quickly secured, and this can reduce the chances of the attackers moving in. Rocket propelled grenades can be used, so fencing can be done. Sandbags. This is also a good method of providing additional protection on bridge wings, and they should be actually regularly checked also that they have not degraded due to moisture, due to seawater, or maybe rain. It has not degraded. So this should be part of your contingency to check the condition of the
So
sandbags.
ब्रिज विंग पे सैंडबैग्स कहाँ प्लेस किए जाते हैं फॉर प्रोटेक्शन?
It is only to make life difficult, so as to say, for the pirates. So you can place it anywhere, maybe on the bridge wings, maybe on the weather deck leading to the bridge, if he is coming from outside. And also, if you will
तो सर
agree,
रास्ता रोकेगा नहीं ब्रिज विंग्स के, अगर जैसे अकोमोडेशन के पीछे हम रखेंगे लेडर्स पे, तो रास्ता हमारे लिए भी तो रोकेगा वो.
of course, but you are aware कि ऐसा है, you are aware कि ऐसा है, ऐसे रखे हुए हैं, you are aware, but the attacker doesn't know. He is going to get surprised. He might trip on it, you know. You are aware as a seafarer, or rather as a shipment, you are aware कि इसको ऐसे रखा गया है. And also, not only that it is going to give a surprise element and make life difficult, it is also going to protect against firing. You can use them on bridge wings also, but mostly suggested is to use it for the ladder companionway which is leading to the bridge from the weather deck. Now that is going to just provide some additional protection.
सर ये चेन लिंक फेंसिंग कौन सी है सर?
Sorry, couldn't hear you. Please say again.
चेन लिंक फेंसिंग.
ऋषभ
Lorad sir. Chain link fencing for RPG.
हाँ, चेन लिंक मतलब आपने उसको चारों तरफ लगा दिया है.
सर ये इसके ऊपर वाला जो पॉइंट है ना, चेन लिंक नीचे नीचे सर, सैंडबैग के जस्ट ऊपर वाला.
हाँ,
chain link fencing can be used to reduce the effect of an RPG.
यहाँ पे आप एक चेन लिंक लगा दो across maybe 2-3 just to reduce the effect if rocket propelled grenade is used against firing.
पर चेन लिंक आरपीजी का इफेक्ट कम कर सकता है?
चेन लिंक क्या?
सर चेन लिंक जो मुझे समझ में आ रहा है सर, ये छोटा ही होगा ना, मतलब कोई बड़ा आइटम तो हो नहीं सकता है वहाँ पे अगर लटकाएंगे तो ये आरपीजी के इफेक्ट को सर कैसे रोकेगा?
अगर आरपीजी स्ट्राइक कर रहा है यहाँ पे तो चेन लिंक के टकरा के गिर जाएगा ना।
क्या सर?
सर आरपीजी तो सर पूरा एरिया ही उड़ा देगा।
चेन लिंक आरपीजी को बचा।
आरपीजी क्या है सर?
रॉकेट प्रोपेल्ड ग्रेनेड।
सर रॉकेट प्रोपेल्ड ग्रेनेड को सर
by
कैसे रोकेगा सर चेन लिंक?
And of course you can rig up like this for preventing access to machinery and accommodation space. Fencing.
बट सर ये तो अलाउड ही नहीं है ना सर, ये तो एक्स्ट्रा कंस्ट्रक्शन हो गया ना सर शिप पे, विदाउट फ्लैग इंफॉर्मेशन, विदाउट क्लास। सर कैसे होगा ये?
ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। You are following BMP because you are transiting in HRA, so you are allowed to take precaution and you are going to document it that you are following the procedure according to BMP. हाँ जी, सॉरी
सर ये राइट साइड वाली जो फोटो है सर, ब्लैक जो चेन्स और डोर्स जो लगे हुए हैं, ये तो सर एक टाइप ऑफ परमानेंट स्ट्रक्चर हो गया ना सर, जो हमें वहाँ पे वेल्ड करना पड़ेगा। ये तो
देखिए परमानेंट स्ट्रक्चर नहीं होगा because you are going to remove it after your transit is finished.
सर ये वेल्ड करना ऐसे अलाउड है सर, मतलब हम फेंसिंग और ये पूरे शिप पे ऐसे रेलिंग्स के बाहर फेंसिंग कर दें तो?
For the purpose of transit HRA, yes.
ओके सर।
Only for the purpose of transit. Because you're going to document it, you're going to note down in your official logbook also that you are ship MV so and so, you are following BMP version 5.0 for the transit of HRA. For that purpose it is allowed. Of course you cannot make a permanent feature after you have crossed the HRA or you have done the transit, you are going to remove it. And this is another method by locking or securing your accommodation doors from inside. Very clearly it should be able to be opened from inside. It is locked, but it should be able to open in an emergency. So some of the precautions you can take, you can block stairs, companionways, maybe using sandbags you can block them so that people coming from outside who are not aware of your precaution, they will find it difficult and maybe they can trip and fall just to make life more difficult. And the whole purpose is to buy time. The more time these people take to reach bridge, the more time you have to secure your vessel and take extra precaution. One thing is definite, if by any chance the attackers do capture the ship by way of making to the bridge, then the only method left is cooperate. You can only delay entry, you can take precautions, but you cannot fight them. That you are clear about it. You cannot fight them. You're not equipped. You're not trained to fight them. But what you can do is delay their entry. Prevention. That is what you can do. If they do happen to board and take control, then the only option left is to cooperate with them.
सर आपके साथ हुआ है कभी ऐसे पायरेट्स को एनकाउंटर किया हो कभी, मतलब जहाज को डाइवर्ट किया हो कुछ ऐसा कभी?
डाइवर्ट
उनके लिए मतलब फॉर द एग्जांपल उनसे बचने के लिए कोर्स ऑल्टरेशन एंड ऑल दैट, लाइक दैट मैन्यूवरिंग तेज करी हो, ऐसा कुछ पायरेट्स पीछे कभी ऐसा हुआ है?
ओके शिवांग, ऐसा हुआ नहीं है। वेरी फ्रेंकली आई वाज जस्ट प्लेन लकी, ऐसा हुआ नहीं है। लेकिन जब आप बात कर रहे हैं मैन्यूवरिंग की, तो वो प्रैक्टिस मैन्यूवर जरूर किया था. It was not required. We had an incident-free transit, but practice maneuver was done to practice it out in the open sea, just to get the hang of it, so that everybody is aware. This is also a method. But if you are asking me, was I personally involved? No. The answer is no. What about anybody else? Even not involved in the incident, maybe transit HRA with precautions. You can share it. Share with us your experience.
हाँ सर, एचआरओ तो बहुत बार क्रॉस किया है गार्ड्स के साथ एंड ऑल द रिजर्वायर्स एंड प्रिकॉशंस एंड ड्रम्स
हाँ जी.
securing. Nobody was allowed to go on deck while the Gulf of Aden transit.
You were allowed to go on deck?
हाँ सर, मतलब जो बापर मंडप वाला एरिया है वहाँ पे
हाँ.
थोड़ा सा एक्स्ट्रा प्रिकॉशंस या कोई बोट वगैरह दिख गई तो बी अलर्ट एट ऑल टाइम्स. ब्रिज का लुकआउट लेवल बढ़ा देना, BML इंक्रीज एंड ब्रिज विंग पे भी लुकआउट विद गार्ड ऑल्सो. और सर फेंसिंग वगैरह लगाया था ब्रिज के जितने भी ग्लास थे और
Can you
साइड
repeat?
ग्लासेस में.
नहीं, last point can you repeat? Fencing
सर
लगाया था.
फेंसिंग, हाँ सर फेंसिंग लगाया था एंड जो साइड के जो ब्रिज विंग के जो साइड ग्लास थे उस पे पूरा आयरन की प्लेट थी हमारे पास, हैवी प्लेट. तो वो 4 बोल्ट लगा के वो प्लेट को पूरा टाइट किया गया था.
And later
पूरा,
remove.
हाँ सर, बाद में हटा दिया था.
Yeah.
इस तरह से पूरा प्रिकॉशन थे और
सर
जितने
इसके
स्टेयर केस थे उसमें ड्रम के साथ रिजर्वायर एंड ऑल सिक्योर करके.
सर इसके साथ हम लोगों ने जैसे जो भी अकोमोडेशंस के पोर्ट होल थे उस पर कवर कर दिया था ताकि रात को लाइट नहीं दिखे कि वेसल है या नहीं है. डमीज लगा दिए थे ताकि कोई दूर से देखे तो उन्हें लगे कि कोई somebody have a lookout there. जैसे पीछे जो अकोमोडेट ब्रिज विंग्स में पीछे की तरफ एरिया होता है ना,
हाँ
वहाँ
जी.
पे डमीज खड़े कर दिए थे.
हाँ, dummy. बिल्कुल.
बाकी तो नॉर्मल था. गार्ड्स होते हैं सर, तो 3 गार्ड होते हैं, वो अपना खुद का तो ऐसा कोई वो भी नहीं होता मतलब.
देखो, गार्ड्स मतलब शिवांग हो सकते हैं, नहीं भी हो सकते. It depends on the company. It is only a recommended precaution. It is not mandatory that you will have armed guards. If you have armed guards, well and good, but it is not a mandatory requirement. It will depend on the company to company and also the premium because it will cost money. Hello. This is what we are devising an answer. Whether you have done it or not, answer तो ऐसे ही करना पड़ेगा. Contingency plan. Then what about safe muster point and citadel? I am sure you have heard of this, but have you worked with this one, designing a SMP, safe muster point? This is an area chosen to provide maximum physical protection.
हाँ सर, ये
Citadel है ना सर,
सीटाडेल में ही रहता है,
दोनों में
अपर डेक
फर्क
पे
है.
रहता है.
एक मिनट, दोनों में फर्क है. SMP is different from citadel. Please remember.
हाँ सर, पहले यहाँ पे मस्टर करके देन वी विल गो टू सीटाडेल.
Yeah. Okay.
आपकी
ठीक है. That
काउंटिंग
is
हो रही है. Yeah.
SMP is something different from citadel. ये तो आपको मालूम है, right? But SMP cannot be citadel. It cannot work as citadel because citadel की requirement दूसरी है. SMP will not have the radio communication, etc. It is only an area to provide maximum physical protection during an attack. But obviously, as somebody has rightly remarked, after having gathered in the SMP, which can be taken as a muster point, then you have to move on to citadel. But BMP recommends that a safe muster point above the waterline must be identified.
नॉर्मली अपर डेक ही मिला है अभी तक तो मोस्टली शिप पे.
हाँ, ठीक है. Upper deck, okay. Maybe your normal muster point, but with some more qualification. Then citadel is a
सर एक दो
designated
एग्जांपल
area.
बताना, मोर क्वालिफिकेशन लाइक हाउ, कैसे?
With the firstly that you are gathering there in an event of attack, so everybody is aware. Then maybe they are carrying some equipment like binoculars to keep lookout. In a normal muster point, you do not carry binoculars, night visions, no, don't carry. But since it is a situation of attack in HRA, maybe you will carry, or your training will involve to carry binoculars or night vision camera binoculars as you gather in SMP. Citadel is the place where crews seek protection from anything and resist forced entry, but it is designed to resist forced entry. Use of Citadel is nothing but assurance to the crew that they are safe with communication facility. In fact, you are supposed to identify when all crew inside the Citadel, then you should communicate with the external authorities that you are all gathered in the Citadel. Satellite phone, VHF, obviously with channels, 16 the most important, and equipped with food, water, and sanitation. Control of propulsion, which is main engine and steering, could also be included in Citadel. Now, what is happening
मेडिसिन
is,
भी होती है
sorry, क्या होता है?
मेडिसिन भी
Medicine.
रखते हैं सिटाडेल में हाँ यस सर मेडिसिन
Okay. देखो, to equip the Citadel, nobody is going to stop you, but obviously it will depend on the space available. Medicine space मिलेगी, maybe you can include medicines. अच्छा, एक बात है तय, this is important. The crew, all crew must be accounted for and confirmed in the Citadel. This has to come from the communication used equipment used from Citadel. This is to be confirmed. Otherwise, naval forces will not board you. Even if one crew member is outside the Citadel, the naval forces will not board you. Because the naval forces are not equipped in the sense legally, to intervene in a hostage situation. They can intervene in hijack, which is what is happening, but they cannot intervene in a hostage situation. So they have to be confirmed that everybody is inside Citadel. Even if one member of crew is outside Citadel, the naval forces will not board you.
ठीक है चलिए सर पेमेंट
Sorry?
पहले कर लिया
Chetan, you're saying something? No? Okay. I'm muted. You can unmute and talk if you are raising something. This is another method, maybe expensive, but I believe it is now being used. CCTV. But I have some misgivings about it. You know, okay, you can use CCTV to monitor, but if the attackers do board it, it does not make any difference. Even if you have captured his image, what difference does it make? But it can be used to monitor and can be a evidence of attack. This is possible. Some companies may periodically, when you are transiting HRA, they can monitor the CCTV coverage from ashore, which can be of value to the military forces. But otherwise, CCTV footage may be only evidence. Searchlights, deck lighting. Now this is, depending on your company SMS and your company procedure. Some companies want weather deck lighting or even searchlights not to be switched on at all, so that the attackers do not know the layout. Well, let me tell you, I have interacted just by chance with some people who have been instrumental in developing some regulations, etc. And they were of the opinion that not only we as seafarers are evolving, discussing about piracy, even the pirates are evolving. They also discuss. They also have not classes exactly, but training sessions to make good new methods. So it is a continuous process. So it is possible for traffic and for call wrecks, only navigation lights to be exhibited at night, of course. Possible, but depends on your company. Anchor lights, if you are at anchor, but very doubtful because you will not stop in piracy area. However, by human psychology, well-lit decks or well-lit ships are less vulnerable because this deters the attacker that the ship is well informed. Obviously, it does give them guidance also. Ships, tools, and equipment which can be used to gain entry even after they are boarded should be stored in a secure location. It should be not left to be accessible to anyone. So it should be locked. Tools and equipments which could be used to gain entry, which means like drill machines, etc. This should be secure. And very importantly, elastic protection to gas cylinders or containers of flammable liquids. This should be given due consideration for protection. Excess gas cylinders should be secured in a location which is not possible for access. And as it is, only you will know that where is the gas cylinder located, excess ones. But it is very highly recommended excess gas cylinders could be or should be landed prior to transit. Only the minimum required to take care of emergency repairs should be kept. Otherwise, it should be landed. Again, this is going to cost money, so you can only suggest as SSO, but maybe your company will agree to land them excess ones to be landed prior transit, and then of course reloaded. We're looking at oxyacetylene cylinders. These are companies, private companies, which can be hired, but it will again depend on how much money the owner wants to spend. But if they are considering the hiring of PMSC, which is armed guards, then current threat coming from your company risk assessment, whether they want it or not, voice plan requirements, ship speed, freeboard, etc. will all fall into play. If you have lesser freeboard, then maybe it will become mandatory to have armed guards. But if you have good freeboard, maybe you can forego. Maybe you can save money. And they are called private maritime security companies. You can also have privately contracted armed security personnel, PCASP in short. Armed security personnel, they can be also contracted and hired. This is a decision whether to hire them or not by individual companies, and ships flag states will figure. This is not something generic. It cannot be a necessary requirement. This will depend on case-to-case basis. Maybe the high-risk area is now very prone. Numerous attacks have taken place recently. Then maybe your company will think about it. Recent attacks, dynamic threat. It is not static. It is dynamic. And recently it has been identified. I'm saying example. Recently it has been identified that there is a spurt. There is an increase in the attacks. Then maybe your company will think about hiring armed guards. You are aware that this is also an issue because the armed guards really speaking, have to get permitted from master to fire. You are aware of this? They cannot fire on their own. They have to be given permission from master to fire. They cannot exhibit. They can exhibit their weapons, no problem, to deter, but they cannot fire. The firing, if they want to do, has to be endorsed by the master. A few years back, few years means maybe about 10, 12 years back, 2006, 7, maybe even more. There was an incident where armed guards, which were on board a vessel transiting HRA very close to India, which is the eastward limit of the HRA. They were transiting, and the armed guards happened to see some fishermen mistook them for pirates and they fired on them. Have you heard of this incident? So much so that the Indian fishermen died because of firing by armed guards. Now it became an issue. It became a very big issue. Since the fishermen had died, the Indian Navy forces intervened and they asked the armed guards to surrender because they have killed innocent fishermen. Have you heard of this incident? This is a real life incident. Huh? It's not a story. It is a real life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You have heard? Very good. Can you recall what happened next? They were captured by the Indian forces, naval forces. And since they were accused of killing innocent
नहीं सर,
fishermen,
वो इटालियन नेवी के आर्म गार्ड थे, फिर उनको बाद में देते थे।
uh-huh. But they had killed innocent fishermen. Of course, with mistaken identity, they had killed innocent people. So they were taken into captivity. Then they were Italian by origin or Italian naval guards, something like that. Now they were taken into custody. Having taken into custody, they were put behind bar. They were put behind jail. But they had to be let off. You know why?
नो सर, दे डोंट हैव टू बी लेट ऑफ। जब उनको छोड़ा था वहाँ वोट डालने के लिए, तो उनके जो ये डिप्लोमेट था उसको अरेस्ट करके रखा था यहाँ पे। मतलब नजरबंद जो कहते हैं, बेसिकली होम अरेस्ट जो कहा था, उसको रखा हुआ था यहाँ पे। वापस
Okay.
वो लोग आए हैं यहाँ पे, छोड़ा कहाँ उन लोगों को?
थोड़ा
छोड़ा कहाँ उन लोगों को? मतलब सर, उनके डिप्लोमेट जो इटालियन में था डिप्लोमेट, उसको हाउस अरेस्ट करके रखा था, उसको फ्लाई करने की वापस जब तक परमिशन नहीं थी, जब तक वो दोनों वापस नहीं आए। छोड़ा कहाँ उन दोनों को? वो वोट डालने गए थे वहां पे इटली में, अकॉर्डिंग टू राइट ऑफ वोट के।
ठीक है, ये बताइए, अगर आपने पूरी स्टोरी फॉलो की है कि वो वापस गए थे वोट डालने, यहाँ तक समझ आ गया। उसके बाद क्या वो वापस आए टू सरेंडर?
नहीं सर, वापस नहीं आए उसके
सर
बाद।
वापस नहीं
यही
आए,
तो बात है।
सर वापस
नहीं
नहीं
सर,
आए,
नहीं
पर
आए,
उन पे वहां पे केस
नहीं आए,
चला
वापस
और
नहीं आए।
वहां पे वो पनिशमेंट हो गई ना इटली में।
सर वो बेसिकली केस इटालियन कोर्ट में ट्रांसफर करा के उन लोगों को बचा लिया गया कंप्लीटली।
हाँ,
ये
एग्जैक्टली
हुआ है।
एग्जैक्टली।
Yes,
आई एम कमिंग टू अ पॉइंट।
yes,
एक मिनट
sir,
सुनो मेरी बात।
exactly
You
यही
know
चीज
why
है।
they had to be let off? Why they had to be let off? Because they were not charged under SUA convention. SUA, Sierra Uniform Alpha, SUA convention, which is suppression of unlawful acts for maritime industry, suppression of any lawful act. They were not charge sheeted under SUA. So the Italian government came back and asked the Indian government, why are you holding them back? Under what convention? And the prosecution had not prepared the charge sheet under SUA. I don't know if it was deliberately done or mistake. दानके का issue तो है. But they had to be let off because not properly charge sheeted. However, the point what we were discussing is that these armed guards actually cannot fire without the permission of master, express permission of master. So this is a issue also. You may have them on board, but then some flag states do not allow deployment of armed guards. They provide medical military protection, but they do not allow armed guards to be on board because of different reasons. One of them was this Italian Coast Guard, Italian armed guards issue. Chalo, anyway, Anybody sailed with armed guards on board HRA में?
यस सर।
हाँ सर, बहुत बार किया है।
वेरी गुड एक्सपीरियंस हो। तो उसमें ये क्लियर था कि आपने फायर नहीं करना अनलेस मास्टर ऑथराइजेज है।
सर जो फायर प्रैक्टिसिंग होती है ना, वो भी मास्टर अप्रूव करता है तब होती है।
तब होती है।
सर हॉट वर्क परमिट बनता है उसका भी, और उसके बाद ही होता
सब
है।
जने पूरा क्रू
अप्रूवल
अकोमोडेशन
लिया
में होता
जाता
है।
है। और पूप डेक पे करा था, और एक बार ब्रिजविंग पे करा था। ब्रिजविंग पे भी किया है सर 2 बार
ओके
सारी प्रैक्टिस।
ठीक है। आई थिंक यू हैव इनफ एक्सपीरियंस टू आंसर क्वेश्चंस। अच्छा है। So this is regarding armed guards, but it is a matter of precaution. Can be mentioned in your answer for contingency planning. It is an additional mitigation protection, but armed guards will be an output of company risk assessment. आप तो कर ही रहे हैं. You are doing shipborne risk assessment, but your company can also carry out a risk assessment (RA), and that will decide whether or not to transfer HRA without armed guards or with armed guards. Your company SMS, your company risk assessment. But again, it is only a recommendation from BMP. It is not a mandatory requirement कि armed guards होनी चाहिए. Reporting is okay. We had talked about it. UKMTO, MSCOR. Initial report, daily report, final report. With the established email IDs or phone numbers. This is one thing important, that not only the initial report, daily report, final report, report of any suspicious or irregular activity is also necessary, so that updation can be done at the site itself. So just the website, we had seen the phone numbers, etc. It is mentioned in the BMP if you want to access it. Now, not only UKMTO, but also MSCOA, which is Maritime Safety Center, Horn of Africa, European Union Naval Forces, EU NAP4. This is encouraged so that you are perfectly safe. This can be mentioned as a part of contingency to contact. Of course, seafarer is always involved, reporting suspicious activity. Just scrolling down quickly, I wanted to show you the charts which are used. So, suspicious activity can be of approach stage, under attack, and then after attack. 3 stages. One thing is definite. When you see an approach stage and you have recognized that some pirate boat is approaching you, then increase your speed to maximum, full speed. Now, what happens if you are trying to zigzag your course? You are at speed, full speed, but you are trying to zigzag course. You are doing a zigzag course, then what happens to the speed? You will lose speed. Rudder cycling, I'm sure you've heard about it. Rudder cycling, that is intentionally done sometimes to reduce speed. But suppose you are going a zigzag speed to outmaneuver a pirate boat, then what are you doing? You're doing rudder cycling in retrospect. मतलब intention नहीं है, but you're doing rudder cycling which can reduce your speed. So ideally you should be steering a straight course to maintain maximum speed. In the approach stage itself, you should activate the emergency procedures as discussed and as outlined in your SMS and in your training procedure. Emergency communication plan, emergency alarm, making an attack announcement, and then deciding what are you going to do. Either you're going to go to SMP and then go to Citadel, or maybe the attackers are too close and you're deciding directly to go to Citadel. So these are some actions you will take in the approach stage itself. So since many of us have said that they had done this transit HRA, can we have a feedback? What did you do about the AIS, your company regulation during the transit, if you remember? What was the method employed? Was your AIS on or off?
On, sir, with the armed guards on board return.
Okay, your AIS was on.
सर स्टेटस में लिखा था आर्म गार्ड्स ऑन बोर्ड.
Okay, that's not a bad idea. But your AIS was on. Anybody worked with a company which said no, not to keep the AIS on, keep it off? There are companies. So any crew which is not required on bridge or engine room should actually muster at SMP, Citadel as instruction received. They should not be lurking around. They should not be left out because they will be captivated. So who are not required immediately on bridge or engine room should muster at the SMP or Citadel. But when sea conditions allow, you can consider alter course to bring the approaching pirate boat, if I can use the word, in the wake of the propeller. It's not a bad idea to use the ship's whistle or foghorn to sound continuously, just to make sure you are sending a message across to the attacker that you have been sighted. Most importantly, SVDR or VDR, whatever you are using, should be recording. Although it is normally on only, but you will confirm that it is recording as evidence. And if armed guards are present, they will take action and agreed action and warn the attackers. If the attack stage has been confirmed or the attackers are close by, then you must ensure that SAS has been activated. There is no time waiting now. You must activate it. Do not use too large helm orders because they are likely to reduce your speed, which is a no-no. Speed should be maximum. और अगर illegal boarding हो ही गई है, successful boarding हो गई है, then you have to take all way off, stop engines, remaining crew to proceed to Citadel. Armed guards will follow the procedure agreed with company and master, and all crew should be present in Citadel or safe muster point. This includes master, bridge team and the armed guards. Do not encourage, if you have been boarded, do not encourage any chance of violence. Your movement should be calm, slow, and very deliberate. You should keep your hands visible because, as I said, I have a strong feeling, I am a firm believer. We are not equipped to fight, we are not trained to fight, we are not armed also. But what we can do is delay the entry. By all means, you can delay the entry. You are buying time. You are buying time to take some more proactive action for delaying. That is all. But if the control has been lost or if the ship is now under attack and the attackers have taken control, then the only option left is to cooperate. Some ideas regarding after attack, patience, mentally active, be mentally active. Keep record of time. This is important because you can lose track of time. But this is not contingency. This is after attack. Do exactly what the attackers ask and comply with their instruction for safety. There is no ego here because you are not equipped to fight them. So do exactly what they say and comply with their instructions to safeguard your life. Recording devices, SVDR, CCTV should be left on. Confrontational. Do not be confrontational. Do not resist. Very important points. This can go as part of training also. Successful attempt हो चुका है. Do not be confrontational and do not resist. Do not make any movements that could be misinterpreted as being aggressive, raising your hands or turning around something. Photographs, no, because this is going to aggravate the attackers. Do not take photographs. Resist taking any photographs. This is another issue, a big issue. Hijack hostage situation is something different because, as I said, if all of you are not in Citadel, I mean, you means the ship under attack, then the naval forces may not board the vessel at all if even one person is outside Citadel. This is why, after you have been boarded and you are in Citadel, you have to communicate with the naval forces in from the Citadel using their equipment, the equipment in the Citadel, to communicate and say that you have been boarded, but all people are inside Citadel. Only then they will assist you and board your vessel. Okay, this is something we have seen. Do not overreact. In fact, do not react. Whatever. In case you are being assisted by military forces, then keep low on the deck, cover head with both hands, and keep your hands visible. Any movements which can be interpreted as aggressiveness should not be allowed. Just cooperate. Because, as I keep on repeating, we are not equipped to fight pirates. but we can delay their entry. That is the objective. Delay their entry, but if successful entry has been made, then the only option left is cooperation. Then some other methods can be used, but really speaking, we can't really help it. Reporting is essential within attack, after attack, and maybe collection of evidence. Reporting is absolutely essential, and it is encouraged to report. In fact, not only the actual attack, any attempt for attack or suspicious activities also to be reported to the UKMTO, WCO, and European Union Naval Forces, EU and NAVFOR. You can gain advice also in case you are under attack from different places, coordination center, Interpol. You can gain advice also, but this is after attack. Really speaking, our intention is to have a discussion on prevention of attack. Different missions are available. They help seamen out. There are forms available for reporting in the BMP version 5.0. Forms are available. Contact details, of course, we saw. This is there. Contact details, and then you have various forms to use inside BMP. You can use those forms. Okay, this is one thing you should know and understand. These are the various charts available, and they are called maritime security charts. Have a look at this. We had talked of Q6099. This is basically the Somalia piracy region. You must have this chart, of course, if you are transiting this area. And these are the charts available. Okay. candidates, what is going to happen is that we are going to continue. We take a break, we come back and meet at 12:45, we continue. And we will move on from this contingency planning of HRA, we will move on to risk assessment, which is also part anyway, risk assessment. So the safety class will continue, but there is one thing I want to tell you, that is we are having a power outage in this area. So battery is low. Please understand I'm going to log out and then log back just to preserve the battery. You get it? I will leave the meeting and join back at 12:45. Is it okay?
Okay.
Just to
Okay,
conserve the
sir.
battery.
It can.
Just to preserve the battery. I will join back at
Yes, sir.
12:45, leaving and joining back. Okay? You stay here. I have an issue with the power. Okay. So I'm leaving now and joining back.
Kit Kat.
Kit Kat break, eh? Take a Kit Kat break. Okay, we can resume. Let's see how long it will last, but right now it's working. We are looking in the safety topic itself, risk assessment, RA. RA or risk assessment, to start with, what is defined as risk? Is the possibility of loss or damage or any other undesirable event. Now, when you talk of risk, it is a combination of likelihood and consequences for a specified hazard. So, this is a measure of harm or loss associated with a named activity. Okay, we continue. So we are talking of analysis of risk or risk assessment. Then where is the risk and how significant is the risk are two questions which will always come in mind. Where is the risk and how significant is the risk? Having identified where is the risk, then how significant is it? These are the 2 points to be kept in mind when doing an analysis of risk. This is the loop for risk analysis: identify, review, control, and evaluate again. Then identify once more to see if we have been able to mitigate it. The closed loop. What is hazard? The definition of hazard: characteristic of material, condition, or activity that has the potential to cause harm or cause risk. Cause harm to people, property, or environment. That is hazard. Identified or defined as hazard. Likelihood, you will keep coming across this when you're doing risk analysis. The likelihood. This is expressed either as a frequency or a probability. Frequency, of course, is the rate at which this occurs: once a year, twice a year, or incidents per year, deaths per year, etc. Probability is the rate of possible event expressed as a fraction of the total number of events. Means how many times this has occurred in a given frequency. 1 upon 100,000, 1 upon 1000, like this. That is likelihood. Which is actually coming from this chart. severity level indicated on the y-axis and frequency indicated, likelihood indicated on the x-axis. That is how your risk assessment will be, assessment matrix will be formulated. We're going to come back to it. Consequence. This is, of course, as the name suggests, is the final outcome of severity and likelihood, the combination. What is the effect? Expressed as a health effect, maybe property loss, environmental effect, whatever is the risk assessment you're carrying out, including evacuation required or quantity spilled in case of environmental damage. It is the final outcome of whatever your assessment you're doing. What is the final outcome? That is consequence. Evaluation of consequences due to an event or incident is the hazard analysis. This is the identification of the elements that lead to harm. You are analyzing the hazard, what effect it will have. Your whole idea is to quantify risk so that it can be managed. Analysis you have done, study of risk, then to quantify it by using numerics to quantify it so that you can reduce the quantity of risk or you can manage it, which is called risk mitigation. By doing a risk assessment, what you're doing is you are making a context and acceptability. It can be done. You take some precautions which are already there, then you improvise on precautions, then you mitigate the risk so that it comes under acceptability level. The numerical estimate of the frequency or probability is called quantitative risk analysis. Since you are involving numerics to establish or to express the risk, then it is called quantitative. This will require some data which is often available to you by experience in a similar situation. So you collect all the data, extensive data available to you, and then you quantify the risk. Just for example, if we are doing a risk analysis, RA for mooring stations, then what is the likelihood of a hazard? Any hazard you can identify when you're doing mooring station? Name one hazard which is possible hazard during a mooring operation. Forward and aft doesn't matter, but during a mooring operation, can you identify a hazard which is possible? None. Just subtraction. Name one hazard associated with a forward mooring station.
Leaking of a hydraulic oil from the winches.
Leaking of the hydraulic oil, you say? Leaking of the hydraulic oil from the winch.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. That is a hazard identified. बिल्कुल ठीक है. Possible to have a
Slip
leak.
and
हाँ जी, एक मिनट भारत, एक मिनट. Let us do this one first. One identification of hazard is oil leakage from hydraulic winches, or maybe electro-hydraulic winches, but there is an oil leakage. So this is so what could be the consequence due to this consequence?
Sir, there can be a fire.
There can be a fire. Okay.
सर क्योंकि जो ये फनल में से स्पार्क्स आते हैं, वो अगर बाय चांस अगर पूरा बर्न नहीं हो फ्यूल और जो स्पार्क्स आते हैं और ध्यान नहीं दे तो फायर लग सकती है पीछे.
Okay जी. ठीक है. Agreed. There is a fire hazard because of this. Consequence could be fire. This is what you're saying, right? Agreed.
Yes,
This is a hazard identified, leaking oil, and consequence could be fire for any reason. But the reason identified in our discussion is sparks from the funnel. ठीक है, done है. This is one way. And Bharat, you were saying something?
sir, slip and trips.
Okay, slip and trips during the station. Slip and trips, hazard, and consequence. ठीक है, agreed. Slip and trip is a hazard. And what could be the likely consequence because of this? Okay. Now, if we go back to do a quantitative risk analysis, so I think it was Shivang who was saying about burning of the oil due to sparks, hazard, oil leakage. By chance, by experience, can you quantify it? How many times it has occurred? Or how many times is the frequency possible it will occur? Let us say in 10 mooring stations, how many times you think this will happen? The frequency?
सर लीस्ट चांसेस, वेरी लीस्ट चांसेस.
हाँ जी, क्या बोलते हैं?
बहुत कम चांसेस है.
बहुत कम. Okay. But you see, we are trying to quantify. So let us say 2 out of 10 times, maybe. Remembering that you are taking the whole thing in account. Oil leakage is possible, but the hazard associated with it, as identified in our discussion, is catching of fire in the oil by sparks from the funnel.
Sir,
So,
by this the hazard can be the oil pollution also. If the rain will be there, this can be also the hazard.
yes, it can be. It can be. But then the whole scenario will change. If you have identified the hazard as oil pollution because of spill of oil from the winches, leakage of oil from winches, then the hazard has changed. The perception of the hazard has changed. Or if you are saying due to sparks from the funnel, you can have a fire. Then the hazard identified is fire due to sparks from funnel.
सर इसमें तो
Hazard
बहुत सारी
perception.
केसेस हो सकते हैं, ऐसे ऑयल का लेवल कम हो गया तो मूविंग विंच की स्पीड कम हो जाएगी, दैट कैन आल्सो टर्न इनटू द हैजर्ड.
राइट, बिल्कुल 100%. सो अगर हम एक एक करके जाएं तो हाउ मेनी टाइम्स by your experience you will feel it will happen that the winch itself is going to trip because of the falling oil level?
सर 8 8 ऑफ 10, मतलब
8
8
out of
बार.
10.
हाँ, 8 बार अगर ऑयल लेवल कम है तो ट्रिप नहीं होगा, तो बहुत स्लो हो जाएगा, जैसे आप जो स्टर्न लाइन से वो देना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाएगा.
So are we looking at a frequency of 8 out of 10 for this reason? No issue. If you feel this is the one, okay, ठीक है, never mind. But personally I feel the frequency is too high. See, identified hazard is the winch is going to trip because of the falling oil level, right? So what measures are already in place to mitigate this? Already in place. I'm sure one measure is to check the oil level prior stations, something like that. At least we are getting into the flow. When you say relative instead of quantitative, this is an expression used to compare risk evaluated here with another risk. So this is another method, but not frequently used, relative risk analysis. But you must note down the definitions because this can be asked in the safety paper itself. With reference to risk assessment, what do you understand by relative risk analysis? Something like that. Management is the next step, which means systematic application to mitigate it, control the risk. These are the risk management. To control the risk which is affecting so and so, hazard, etc., to control it. That is called risk management. But obviously, this will involve risk reduction options, mitigating measures in place, and prioritization of issues and resources, of course. How much resources you have to prioritize to reduce the risk. To continue with risk management, it is also the role of safety regulators to identify activities that involve risk and then to establish acceptable level. Near zero risk is not always achievable, and if you are aiming for near zero risk, it can be very costly, and near zero risk policy can lead to abandon of the job itself, because no job on board can be at near zero risk. So that is very costly, and in most cases this is not achievable at all. You can only reduce the quantity of risk, but you cannot move to near zero. That is not possible. In most of the operations, not possible. The only thing left will be not to do the job, which is not acceptable. Acceptability. This is the level of risk which is acceptable to do the job. Quantitative risk analysis carried out, and then you bring it back. You work backwards to bring the risk to an acceptable level. That is risk management or risk assessment. That is the whole idea of risk assessment, to bring it to an acceptable level. We have realized risk is not possible to eliminate completely, so whatever is the risk involved, bring it to an acceptable level where minimum harm is done to the people and cost, etc., is also included. When you are doing mitigation of the risk and bringing down to acceptable level, you have to take cost also into account. Cost involved will be always a factor to be considered of what precaution you can take to bring back the risk. Cost will be an important tool, important factor to consider about the perceived risk. How much cost is involved in an activity to bring it back to acceptable level. In fact, that will decide whether you can actually take the precaution or not. It is always commerce. It is a continuous process, no doubt, RA. And again, this is a dynamic process. The risk perceived today may not be same for the same hazard tomorrow, because the whole scenario might have changed. For example, mooring stations has got an impact of weather. The weather is not going to remain static, it is going to be dynamic. So the risk also is going to change with time, with the volume of time. So human behavior towards issues, general awareness, vigilance is a vital, they play vital roles in decision making process on RA. It is not a permanent thing, it is going to change with time. With the volume of time, the whole perceived risk can change. Weather is one thing which is going to change with time, and that can, change the risk also. We will agree doing a mooring station in calm weather is something different from doing a mooring station in rain and snow, which means inclement weather. The perception of the risk will change. The whole risk scenario will change. Of course, this chart we will see in a different way, but this is what probability and severity. Just leave it like this now, and then we'll come back. These are some factors you consider in risk analysis: sleep, work hours, sleep monitoring, self and peer fatigue monitoring, ensuring fitness for duty, see if everyone is able to maintain adequate alertness because of sleep, lack of sleep, etc. This is risk. To mitigate it, we have identified one method. We could identify one method is to report these fatigue related events, near miss and accidents, and then analyze the same to have a future reference. Right? Let's go to that template we were talking about. when we say risk assessment matrix, shared screen is visible.
Yes, sir. Visible.
Okay. So what you're doing actually is you're calculating what is called a RPN, risk prioritization number, which is a simple thing. This is equal to severity into likelihood. Each has got points, so severity into likelihood, which goes like this. Risk determination 5 by 5 matrix it is called. It is called actually 5 by 5 matrix. So when we say frequent, the likelihood frequent, it gets 5 marks. Severity, if it is critical, it is 5 by 5. 5 into 5, 25. 25 is falling in the red zone, simply meaning cooperation is not permissible. So in color red zone, score 16 to 25, risk is high and operation is not permissible. In fact, it goes to suggest to abort the mission, not to carry out, because the prioritization number RPN is very high. However, if it is falling in green zone, like 1 to 6 points, this is a warning. Risk is acceptable. Risk is acceptable. So this is how you will make the table. Maybe you want to make a sketch or something, I don't know. You can draw it out. This is the risk matrix, 5 by 5 risk matrix. So one hazard, what somebody had mentioned, let's talk about that one only. We are looking at oil leakage from the winch leading to trip of the winch. And of course the heading here is forward moving station. So in this one, this is the hazard. So let us see, what do you put about the frequency? How frequent will this be? Likelihood, frequency. Unlikely, remote, occasional, moderate or frequent. This is the caption. Oil leakage from winch leading to trip of the winch. Trip means of course stopping of the winch. So how frequent will you put this? Likelihood in this order. What frequency you will say it is? No idea. How would you determine the risk? Likelihood. Can I say occasional? The possibility that because of an oil leakage from the winch itself is getting tripped during station. Can I say it is occasional? The frequency? Occasional. If you say occasional, then the marks awarded are 3. And if it does happen, then what is the consequence? Severity. Will it be critical, very serious, marginal or negligible? The severity. Now because the winch itself is getting tripped, so let me put it as severity as critical, right? Severity as critical. So you get here 5 points for the severity. Consequently, the RPN becomes equal to 15. What do you say? RPN becomes 15 because of the leakage of oil, winch getting tripped. Occasional is the frequency and it is a high priority thing which is critical. So you are in yellow zone, you are here. This is warning. Warning. Proceed with extreme caution and risk is always present. Implement additional measures immediately and then also review within 7 days. Emergency control measures should be in place, that is for yellow zone. HRA transit with low freeport. What do you say is the likelihood? But BMP in place. Likelihood? BMP as it is, it recommends that you have the maximum freeport possible. So can I say the likelihood is remote? Remote? Now even if it does happen, that you are transiting HRA with less freeboard. Then what is the consequence? Severity. Critical, very serious, serious, marginal, negligible. Well, you will have to interact. I don't know. You're quiet, absolutely. Otherwise, you will lose the essence of the discussion. There's one thing I want to tell you straight away. The power outage has continued. It is still not back. So, just in case I break off by chance, it means that the power has failed because I've used the inverter supply also. Power is not on since last night, so everything is run well. I'm seeing some batteries still left, but let us hope it continues. Otherwise, if I do get broken off, then you must understand it is because of the power outage. However, let us continue for the time being. ये आपने देख लिया? Have you understood this? The plan of risk assessment. But then there is a form which you should complete, where you write the risk, hazard identification, work or activity you write here, maybe oil winch getting tripped, winches getting tripped due to low oil, hazard is possible accident. Then you write existing risk control is to check the hydraulic pressure or hydraulic oil level before stations. Severity and likelihood, RPN you will get by multiplying these two. Additional control measures, yeah, this is important. For the hazard, we have identified tripping of the winches due to low level of oil. What is the additional measure you can place? Additional risk control measure to bring down the risk. No, you cannot vouch for an additional control measure. This chart you can draw. I don't know. You're not interacting, so really speaking, I will not know how to, take this into account. Can you see this shared screen? Can you read it? we have seen work of activity, forward mooring station, hazard, tripping of winches due to low level of hydraulic iron, right? What is a possible accident which can happen due to this? I thought this is an interesting subject, but you are not responding at all. Injury, इतना ही रखते हैं सिर्फ इंजरी टू क्रू. एग्जिस्टिंग कंट्रोल मेजर क्या है? एग्जिस्टिंग कंट्रोल मेजर टू टेक with regard to the stripping of winches due to low level of hydraulic iron. We had seen and come to a conclusion that the severity, rather likelihood, was occasional. So 3 points, occasional. Severity of force is critical. So severity 3 and likelihood occasional 3. So with critical 5 points, occasional, likelihood 3 points, RPN, which is a product of these two, becomes 15. Are you with me? Do you get my point? Any additional control measure you can adopt to mitigate this? Additional, apart from the fact that you have mentioned to check the oil levels prior operations, what else can you do? Additional risk control?
Operate them prior arrival.
Sorry, say again.
Trial operation prior arrival or usage.
Haji. What do you want to do prior operation? Yeah, go
Just
ahead.
try them out. Just try them out, sir.
Okay. But this is not going to be taken care of here, like here. This one, checking of the oil levels prior operations. This is already existing. Can I say that we should have a standby winch? Emergency use.
कैसे मतलब स्टैंड बाय विंच कैसे सर?
मतलब इंटीग्रेशन हो उसका, अगर ये विंच फेल हो जाए तो ये ऑन हो जाए.
और अगर तीनों ही विंचेस यूज हो रहे हो तो?
तीनों
मतलब फॉरवर्ड के सारे यूज हो रहे हैं तो?
देन यू स्टॉप वन जस्ट फॉर मेकिंग श्योर. अब ये कैसे होगा? हाउ विल यू कम टू दिस कंक्लूजन कि एक नहीं करनी चाहिए ऑपरेट? विद द हिस्ट्री ऑफ द इक्विपमेंट. अगर आपके पास हिस्ट्री है कि ये इक्विपमेंट में ये विंच बार बार फेल हो जाती है बिकॉज ऑफ ऑयल लेवल्स, देन यू विल नॉट then you cannot use all of them. Then you have to keep one on standby.
तो मतलब जहाँ पे 6+4 करना हो तो वहां तो रोप ही नहीं जा पाएगी फिर।
अच्छा मुझे एक बात बताओ, आर यू फॉलोइंग दिस पॉइंट? यू हैव अ स्टैंड बाय बेंच, पहले इसको कंप्लीट करते हैं। अगर ऐसा हो जाए, अगर ऐसा फैसिलिटी मिल जाए, देन डू यू हैव एनीथिंग ऑन द सिवियरिटी कि अगर आपके पास ये बैकअप हो जाए, देन व्हाट हैपेंस टू द सिवियरिटी, दिस वन?
बैकअप एज सच अनयूज्ड, अगर अनयूज्ड है फिर तो ठीक है।
हाँ,
अगर मैं कह रहा हूँ कि अगर उस ऑपरेशन में सर सारे विंचेस यूज होने वाले हैं,
देन ऑफ कोर्स यू कैनॉट इंक्लूड दिस।
फिर कैसे बनाएंगे सर इसमें?
ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है, आई अंडरस्टूड योर पॉइंट। देन हैव यू गॉट आइडिया अबाउट एन एडिशनल कंट्रोल मेजर? ये तो मेरा आइडिया था ना,
वही
टू हैव अ
सोच
स्टैंड बाय बेंच।
वही सोच रहा हूँ सर, क्या कर सकते हैं?
See, you must understand what we are trying to discuss is to carry out RA. तो अगर ये पॉसिबल है, डज इट ब्रिंग बैक द सिवियरिटी और लाइक्लीहुड? अगर ऐसा हो जाए, अगर मिल जाए आपको ये एक फैसिलिटी कि आप एक स्टैंड बाय बेंच रख सकते हैं, देन डू यू ब्रिंग बैक द सिवियरिटी? इसमें देखो, डज इट ब्रिंग बैक द सिवियरिटी और लाइक्लीहुड? लेट मी टेल यू,
सर फिर तो
severity
डाउन
will
हो
remain
जाएगा
the
ना
same.
सर, फिर तो
Severity will change
सिवियरिटी के चांसेस कम हो
because in
जाएंगे।
case there is a failure, severity will remain the same, accident. But likelihood, because you got another winch, is now going to reduce to the norm. So you are going to bring back your RPN to 10. Means you are coming to an acceptable level to carry out the mooring operation.
अनलाइकली सर।
Unlikely में आओगे? You say unlikely, right? By the additional control measure. Likelihood you say unlikely, right? 1. And what about the severity?
नेग्लिजिबल।
सिवियरिटी सर दिखाना सर, एक बार नीचे करना।
हाँ बोलो, मैं इसको जूम आउट कर देता हूँ। आई डोंट नो अगर आप नहीं देख पा रहे हो, 1 मिनट। अब ठीक है।
हाँ जी सर।
मेरा एक पॉइंट था जो अभी किसी से बात हो रही थी। देखो, आपने इसको बोल दिया अनलाइकली, लाइकलीहुड बिकॉज यू गॉट अ बैकअप, देयर आई एग्री। बट इन केस दीज टू आल्सो फेल, द लाइकलीहुड, द सिवियरिटी विल रिमेन द सेम।
मॉडरेट सर।
मॉडरेट, ओके, सिवियरिटी मॉडरेट। नहीं, सिवियरिटी मतलब यहाँ पे क्रिटिकल होगा, वेरी सीरियस, सीरियस, मार्जिनल, नेग्लिजिबल।
सीरियस सीरियस सर।
सीरियस, सीरियस, ये आपका आइडिया ये है, सीरियस। सो वी आर रीचिंग टू एक्सेप्टेबल जोन, अनलाइकली एंड सीरियस। बट
यस
मेरा एक पॉइंट है, सी द रिस्क एसोसिएटेड यू आर मिटिगेटिंग बाय रिड्यूसिंग द लाइकलीहुड। बट अगर ऐसा हो जाए तो सिवियरिटी उतनी ही रहेगी। जो अगर एक्सीडेंट होगा, चाहे वो मेन विंच यूज हो रही थी, चाहे स्टैंड बाय विंच हो रही थी, अगर वो फेल होती है तो रिस्क एसोसिएटेड इज सेम, which I would say, you cannot reduce the severity. You have reduced the likelihood by using a standby winch. यो ठीक है, अनलाइकली पे आ गए तुम। वैसे तो रिमोट आना चाहिए, तो चलो अनलाइकली, बट इट कैनॉट बी टर्म नाउ एज अ नेग्लिजिबल रिस्क बिकॉज सिवियरिटी अगर ऐसा हो गया तो उसमें कॉन्सिक्वेंस वही होगा जो मेन विंच बंद होने था। सोचो, इफ आई एम रॉन्ग, ओके। But the idea is to bring the acceptable risk into some levels which can be taken for acceptability for doing the work. मतलब आप यहाँ कहीं आ जाओगे, ब्लू या ग्रीन जोन में, then the risk is acceptable. Means now you can go ahead and do the work by putting the control measure, additional control measure. आपने क्या किया? आपने स्टैंड बाय विंच लगा दी, कंट्रोल मेजर, then you have brought down these two and RPN has now come down to acceptable level. Now that is the more or less idea for carrying out RA. This is only one hazard, one job description we have undertaken. We can go ahead and do it for some other things also, like maybe HRA transit. Then you carry out RA. Identify a hazard with HRA, see what is the possible accident possible, then see what are the existing control measures, work out the RPN for these control measures, and then see what are the additional control measures which also will be deploying the BMP version 5.0. Then see if you bring back severity and likelihood to an acceptable RPN.
Sir, is it mandatory to write additional risk control measure for every hazard, or we can skip one of them?
Okay. See, the whole idea for having an additional control measure is to bring back your RPN. RPN यहाँ पे identified है, इसको कम करने के लिए आप ये कर रहे हो, so that you can bring it to acceptable level.
अगर सर किसी चीज का ऑलरेडी एक्सेप्टेबल रेंज में, उसका थोड़ी ना एडिशनल
नहीं,
रिस्क
उसका नहीं चाहिए भाई, डेफिनेटली नहीं चाहिए,
ज्यादा ही लेवल वाला हो तो ना। ओके,
डेफिनेटली नहीं चाहिए। अगर आप ऑलरेडी कंट्रोल लेवल पे हैं, एक्सेप्टेबल लेवल पे हैं, देन इट्स ओके।
ठीक है सर।
But you will agree with me that there is very little chance that you will come under control measures straight away. You have to bring back risk control. बाकी अगर by chance if you are doing a job which is
नहीं सर, आ सकता है ना सर, आ सकता है सर। HRA से ट्रांजिट की आपने बात करी है ना, उसमें एक हजार्ड रिस्क असेसमेंट है, लोगों के हाथ कट सकते हैं रेजिंग वायर डालते हुए, है ना। मैंने सीधा उसमें डाला कि उसको करने के लिए पॉसिबल एक्सीडेंट और एग्जिस्टिंग रिस्क कंट्रोल वेयर लेदर ग्लव्स।
हाँ हाँ, एग्जिस्टिंग रिस्क कंट्रोल
ऑलरेडी कम हो गया ना सर फिर।
ठीक है, ठीक है,
फिर उसमें नहीं जरूरत।
एग्जिस्टिंग रिस्क कंट्रोल था वेयर लेदर ग्लव्स, ठीक है। सो व्हाट कैन बी एन एडिशनल रिस्क कंट्रोल मेजर?
सर जरूरत ही नहीं होगी ना सर, फिर तो एक्सेप्टेबल में होगा ना लेदर ग्लव्स के साथ तो।
नहीं नहीं नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है।
सर ऐसे तो फिर हर क्वेश्चन में हर चीज में मैं, मतलब मुझे जाने के बिना बात के ऊपर उसके कि हाँ भी नहीं मुझे रिस्क कंट्रोल चाहिए चाहिए, जब एक सिंपल लेदर ग्लव्स से वो कंट्रोल में हो जाएगा तो फिर मैं।
अच्छा, एक काम करो
सर फिर इससे ऊपर तो सर वही वाला है सर, वो जो गैली में होते हैं ना आजकल लोहे के ग्लव्स से डलवा के कहते हैं चॉपिंग करो कि हाथ नहीं कटेंगे, वैसे वाले डाल के करो तो।
ठीक है, I leave it to you. We can talk more about it. Topic is still open. But can we think about this one? HRA transit with deploying reservoir. इसमें क्या हैजर्ड आ सकता है? लाइवलीहुड, सिवियरिटी। ठीक है, इसको आप कोशिश करना, देन वी कैन टॉक अबाउट इट जस्ट एज अ प्रैक्टिस। We can talk about it, no problem. But use these forms, etc., to come to this conclusion.
ओके सर, ठीक है।
Okay, जी। Apart from this, have you got a query for this session? And please remember, this one was about safety topic. Now, next when we meet, I think it is at 15:45, if I'm not mistaken. The class which I have will be on cargo work. क्योंकि
What
last
topic sir?
time
What topic sir today cargo?
topic, let me go through it, let me see क्या बचा है, ठीक है, don't worry about it, but I want to make it clear because last time there was a confusion. Safety will end here. अभी के लिए बंद करेंगे, we take a break, and of course जो क्लास चल रही है वो चलेगी, but when I come and meet you again at 15:45 we will talk about cargo work, ठीक है।
ओके सर।
What we can do is we can close out this session by responding to this chat box. That will take care. We meet again. I will meet again at 15:45. With a clear understanding, it will be a cargo class. I'm quite sure I'll be well equipped because I think power has been resumed.